Never react, explain or respond. Someone just insulted you. In front of people. You felt it move through your chest like a blade. Your face went warm. Your jaw tightened. Every cell in your body screamed at you to say something. To defend yourself. To explain. To fire back. And most people do. Most people open their mouths. But there are a rare few, and I mean rare, who do something the crowd never expects. They say nothing. They do not react. They do not explain. They do not respond. They simply look. And in that silence, that absolute, unshakable silence, something happens in the room. The person who attacked them begins to shrink. The crowd shifts. The power changes hands. Without a single word spoken. What you are about to learn today is one of the oldest and most misunderstood weapons in human history. Not a weapon made of steel or fire. A weapon made of stillness. Welcome to Stoic Mindset. If you are new here, stay. What we discuss on this channel is not comfort. It is not motivation that fades by Thursday. It is ancient. It is tested. It is the kind of wisdom that has survived empires, plagues, wars, and the endless collapse and rebuilding of civilizations. And it applies to your life. Right now. Today. Today we are going inside one of the most powerful principles the Stoics ever taught, and one of the hardest to master. The discipline of silence. The art of never reacting, never explaining, never responding from a place of wound. This will challenge you. It challenged me. It challenges everyone who genuinely takes it on. Because we live in a world that rewards reaction. That mistakes noise for strength. That confuses explanation for integrity. The Stoics saw through all of it. And by the end of this conversation, so will you. Before we go deeper, if this kind of content is what you have been looking for, subscribe to this channel right now. Every week we go this deep. Every week we bring something that will sit with you long after the video ends. Subscribe. And let's begin. The story of the general and the drunk. There was once a great general. His name is lost to the informal telling of this story, but those who study the Stoics will recognize the shape of the man, the kind of commander who inspired absolute loyalty not through fear but through something quieter and far more powerful. Presence. One evening, after a long campaign, this general sat at a banquet surrounded by soldiers, dignitaries, and men of position. He had just won a significant battle. The room was celebrating. And then a man, drunk, bitter, jealous of the general's reputation, stood up at the far end of the table. He began to speak loudly. He mocked the general's strategy. He questioned his courage. He said, in front of everyone gathered, that the victory had been luck. That any fool could have done what the general had done. The room went still. Everyone looked at the general. He was looking at the drunk man. Calmly. Without expression. He said nothing. The drunk man, emboldened by the silence, went further. He became personal. He reached back into old gossip, old wounds, old stories designed to humiliate. Still, the general said nothing. He picked up his cup. He drank. He turned to the man beside him and resumed the conversation that had been interrupted. The drunk man sat down. Because there is nothing more disarming than a wall that refuses to crack. Later, one of the general's officers pulled him aside. He said, "How? How did you sit there and say nothing?" "I wanted to cross the table." The general looked at him for a long moment. And then he said something the officer never forgot for the rest of his life. He said, "Why would I hand a drunk man a sword? Sit with that. Why would I hand a drunk man a sword?" Every reaction you give to a provocation is a weapon you hand to the person provoking you. Every explanation you offer to someone who has not earned it is a confession of insecurity. Every response fired from a place of emotion is a move made by someone else, because they pulled the trigger. The Stoics understood this completely. And they built an entire philosophy of power around it. The architecture of reaction. Let's understand what actually happens when we react. Not philosophically. Physiologically. When something provokes you, an insult, a challenge, an accusation, a betrayal, your brain does something before your conscious mind has even registered what happened. The amygdala, the ancient, reptilian alarm center deep in your brain, fires. Cortisol floods your bloodstream. Your heart rate climbs. Your vision narrows. Your reasoning capacity drops. This is called the threat response. And it evolved over millions of years to protect you from predators in tall grass, from rival tribes, from immediate physical danger. It is a magnificent system. In tall grass. But in a conversation. In a meeting. In a relationship. In the comments section of the internet. The threat response is not your friend. Because it was designed for survival, not for wisdom. And when it fires, you are no longer thinking. You are not reasoning. You are not strategic. You are ancient. You are a frightened animal making noise. And the person who provoked you? They know this. They were counting on it. Epictetus, born a slave, became one of the greatest minds in history, taught that between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space lives your freedom. He wrote, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." That space, that micro-moment between what happens to you and what you do about it, is where everything is decided. The person who can expand that space, who can live in it, who can choose what comes from it rather than simply discharging whatever the emotion demands. That person is free in a way that almost no one else is. The woman who never explained. Let me tell you about a woman named Celeste. Celeste was in her mid-40s. She ran a small business. She had built it from nothing over 15 years with almost no help. One day, a younger competitor, well-connected, well-funded, began spreading rumors. That Celeste had behaved unethically with a client. That she had cut corners. That her reputation was not what it appeared. The rumors spread. Friends called. Business contacts asked carefully worded questions. And everyone waited to see what Celeste would do. She did nothing. She did not call a meeting to defend herself. She did not write a long post on social media explaining her side. She did not make calls to get her version of the story circulating. She showed up to work. She served her clients. She behaved exactly as she had always behaved. People were confused. Some were even irritated. Doesn't she care? Doesn't she know what's being said? She knew. Months passed. The competitor, finding no resistance to push against, no fire to fan with oxygen, grew bored. The rumors faded. And something unexpected happened. The clients who had watched Celeste remain silent through all of it, who had seen her refuse to drag them into a spectacle, refuse to make them witnesses in a war, trusted her more. Not less. More. Because her silence had communicated something that no explanation ever could. I do not need you to believe in my innocence. My actions are my testimony. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injustice." Not to out-argue. Not to outshout. Not to explain yourself until the room believes you. To simply be, with such consistency, such clarity, such unshakable alignment between who you are and what you do, that the lies have no surface to stick to. Explanation is almost always the weaker move. When you explain yourself to someone attacking you, you are accepting their framing. You are stepping into the arena they built, wearing the costume they chose for you. You are playing their game. And you will rarely win a game that someone else designed. Why we explain, the deeper wound. Let's go deeper. Because the urge to explain is not simple. It is not just communication. It is a cry from a very old wound. Think about the first time you truly needed to be understood. Maybe you were young. Maybe something happened that felt profoundly unfair. Maybe you were accused of something you didn't do, or misunderstood in a way that changed how people saw you. And you tried to explain. And they didn't listen. Or they listened and still didn't believe you. Or they used your explanation against you. That experience, and almost every person alive has a version of it, created a belief. A belief that says, if I can just explain clearly enough, perfectly enough, thoroughly enough, people will understand. And if they understand, they will stop hurting me. This belief is understandable. It is also, in most cases, false. Because people who are determined to misunderstand you will not be moved by explanation. People who are attacking you do not want your truth. They want your reaction. People who have already decided who you are will filter every explanation you give through the lens of what they have already decided. Seneca understood this with cold clarity. He wrote, "A sword never kills anybody, it is a tool in the killer's hand." Your words, your explanations, your defenses, are tools. And in the hands of someone who means you harm, they will be used as weapons against you. Every detail you offer becomes ammunition. Every vulnerability you expose becomes a target. The Stoics were not cynical about people. They believed deeply in human community, in connection, in love. But they were honest about human nature. And honest about the particular dynamics of conflict. In conflict, explanation is almost never the answer. This does not mean you carry injustice silently forever. It does not mean you never speak. It means you choose when, how, why, and to whom. From a place of choice. Not reaction. From your center. Not your wound. The emperor who stayed silent. In the year 175 AD something extraordinary happened. One of Marcus Aurelius's most trusted generals, a man named Avidius Cassius, who had served Rome brilliantly for decades, declared himself emperor. He had heard a rumor that Marcus Aurelius was dying. He moved fast. He rallied legions to his banner. He began taking territory. Marcus Aurelius was not dying. He received the news of the betrayal. And here is what did not happen. He did not rage. He did not immediately march his armies to crush the rebellion. He did not write furious proclamations denouncing Cassius. He wrote to the Senate, calmly, with measured words, expressing not anger at Cassius, but concern for the soldiers who had been misled. He expressed hope that the situation would resolve without further bloodshed. He wrote in his meditations around this period, how much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it. He began moving his armies. Slowly. With purpose. And before he reached Cassius, the rebellion collapsed. Cassius was killed by his own officers. And Marcus Aurelius, learning that the man's head had been brought as a gift, refused to look at it. He wrote to the Senate asking that Cassius's family be treated with clemency. That his co-conspirators not face the death penalty. He wrote, "I have prayed for this above all, that no man should die because of me." Here was a man with absolute power. With every justification in the world to react with fury and punishment. Who chose instead to respond from his values. Not from his wound. Not from his pride. Not from the burning desire to be vindicated, to be seen as right, to punish those who had wronged him. From his values. This is the highest expression of what we are discussing today. Not silence as passivity. Not non-reaction as weakness. Silence as sovereignty. Choosing your response, or your non-response, from the deepest place of who you are. The three temptations. Now I want to name the three things this principle asks you to resist. Because they will call to you. Loudly. The first temptation, the urge to react. Something happens. Someone says or does something that lands on you like a slap. And everything in your body says, respond now. This is the oldest trap in human conflict. The person who can make you react immediately has already won half the battle. Because a reactive person is a predictable person. And a predictable person can be controlled. Think of a skilled chess player. They do not move immediately when their opponent makes a threatening move. They sit. They breathe. They look at the whole board. They ask, what does my opponent want me to do? And what is the wiser move? The Stoics called the practice of pausing prosoche, self-attention. The discipline of watching your own mind, catching the reaction before it escapes, and asking, is this the response of a free person? Or is this the response of someone being controlled? The second temptation, the urge to explain. Someone misunderstands you. Misrepresents you. Accuses you of something. And you feel a burning need to set the record straight. Ask yourself this honestly. In your experience, truly, in your lived experience, how often has an explanation changed the mind of someone determined to see you a certain way? Almost never. Because those who are genuinely open to understanding you do not need a formal explanation. They will ask questions. They will approach with curiosity. They will give you the benefit of the doubt. Those who are not open, no explanation will reach them. You are not insufficient. Your words are not insufficient. Their willingness is absent. And no amount of words fills that gap. Epictetus was direct about this. He said, if anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said of you but answer. He was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone. This is not bitterness. It is freedom. The freedom of a person who does not need the world to understand them in order to know who they are. The third temptation, the urge to respond from emotion. This is the subtlest of the three. Because sometimes we do speak. Sometimes we do respond. Sometimes silence is not the right answer. The question is never simply, do I speak or not? The question is, from where does my response come? Does it come from the wound? From the hot place? From the need to win, to be right, to punish, to relieve the pressure of feeling wronged? Or does it come from your values? From your centered, clear, unshakable understanding of who you are and what actually serves the situation? A response from emotion is almost never about the situation in front of you. It is about every situation before it. Every old slight. Every old fear. Every unresolved wound that this present moment has accidentally reopened. And the other person, the specific person in front of you, becomes a stand-in for everyone who ever made you feel small. They may not deserve that. And more importantly, you deserve better than fighting old wars in new rooms. The Boy and the Fence. Warm, slow music, storytelling mode. There is a story I want to share. Simple. Old. But exact. A young boy had a terrible temper. Not an unusual temper. Not the kind that makes people fear you. The small, daily kind, the snapping at friends, the sharp words, the flashes of fury over small frustrations that left a trail of small damage behind him. His father was a patient man. He did not lecture. He did not punish. He took the boy to the back fence, a long wooden fence that ran the length of their property. He handed the boy a bag of nails and a hammer. He said, every time you lose your temper today, drive a nail into the fence. The boy thought this was strange. But he agreed. That day, he drove 37 nails into the fence. The next day, 22. The day after, 15. Then 8. Then 3. Then one day, none. He ran to his father. I did it. No nails today. His father smiled. He said, good. Now go pull out every nail. The boy spent the rest of the day pulling nails. It was hard work. Some were deep. Some had bent. Some took everything he had. When he finally finished, his father came and stood beside him at the fence. He said, "The fence is still standing. But look at it." The boy looked. The fence was full of holes. The father said quietly, "Every time you lose your temper, every time you react without thought, you put a hole in someone. In a relationship. In the world around you. You can remove the nail. You can apologize. You can try to fix it. But the hole remains." The Stoics understood this at a civilization level. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Not talking about it. Not reacting to those who question it. Not explaining yourself to those who doubt it. Be one. The fence of your reputation, your relationships, your integrity, is built nail by nail over years. And it is destroyed the same way. One reaction at a time. What silence communicates. Let's dismantle a myth. The myth that silence is weakness. In a culture that prizes the fast comeback, the sharp response, the public clapback, silence looks like you have nothing to say. It looks like surrender. It looks like you lost. This is one of the most profound misunderstandings in human social life. And understanding why it is wrong will change how you move through every room you enter. Silence communicates more than words ever can. When someone attacks you and you respond immediately, you communicate, "This reached me. This touched something." You found a button and you pressed it. When someone attacks you and you go still, you communicate something entirely different. You communicate, "I have seen worse. I am not moved. You do not have the power to disturb my interior world." That communication lands. It lands in the attacker's body like a cold stone. Because the attacker was looking for friction. For fire. For engagement. And you gave them a mirror. A calm, unreadable mirror. And what do people see when they look into a calm mirror at their worst moment? Themselves. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape finding oneself in the ranks of the insane." Most people, in conflict, in provocation, in the heat of being challenged, join the insanity. They match the energy. They escalate. They react. The Stoic does not join. They stand outside the storm and watch it spin. Not because they do not feel it. They feel it. But they have built, through years of practice and philosophy, an inner structure strong enough to hold the feeling without being destroyed by it. The cost of constant reaction. Let me tell you what living reactively costs you. Not in the dramatic moments. Not in the big blow-ups. In the small, daily, accumulated cost of a life lived on someone else's terms. Every time you react without thought, you spend energy that could have been yours. The human nervous system does not distinguish between large and small threats. A rude comment from a colleague activates the same cascading stress response as a genuine emergency. Your body goes to war over a text message. Multiply that over days. Weeks. Months. The person who reacts to everything is in a constant state of low-grade war. Tired in ways they cannot explain. Short with people they love. Carrying a weight they never consciously chose. Seneca put it plainly, "Omnia aliena sunt, tempus tantum nostrum est." Everything is alien to us. Time alone is ours. Every reactive moment is stolen time. Not stolen by the person who provoked you, that is too simple, too convenient. Stolen by you. Handed over freely to whoever decided to pull your strings on that particular day. The disciplined person, the person who has cultivated the practice of non-reaction, does not give that time away. They move through the day at their own pace. In their own rhythm. Unbothered not because nothing touches them, but because they have chosen what they will allow to enter their inner world. And they guard that world with everything they have. The master and the student, A Story of Stillness. A young student came to study under a master known throughout the region for his composure. People said that no one had ever seen this man lose his temper. That no insult could reach him. That no injustice could make him bitter. The student was skeptical. He thought, every man has a breaking point. So he decided to find it. For the first week, he questioned everything the master taught. Loudly. In front of others. The master responded calmly and with clarity. Without irritation. Without defensiveness. The second week, the student began making comments about the master's past, half-truths, rumors he had collected, designed to embarrass. The master acknowledged what was true. Let go of what was not. He did not explain. He did not defend. The third week, the student lost patience entirely. In the middle of a lesson, he stood up and said, loudly, with contempt. You are a fraud. Everything you teach is borrowed from better men. You have nothing original to offer. The room went completely still. Every student held their breath. The master looked at the young man for a long, unhurried moment. Then he said quietly, if someone brings you a gift and you do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong? The student, thrown, said, to the one who brought it. The master nodded. Then I thank you for your anger. I have chosen not to accept it. It remains entirely yours. He resumed the lesson. The young student sat down slowly. And for the first time in 3 weeks, he began to actually listen. This is the practice. Not magical. Not metaphysical. A choice. Made consistently. In the fire of provocation. I choose not to accept this. I see it. I feel it. I understand what it is trying to do. And I choose not to accept it. Epictetus said, men are disturbed not by the things which happen, but by the opinions about the things. The insult has no power until you grant it power. The accusation has no weight until you pick it up. The provocation has no heat until you breathe oxygen onto it. This is your choice. Every time. Always. When to speak, the Stoic distinction. Tone warms, becomes instructional. Now. I want to address something important. Because a misreading of this philosophy leads people into a cold, closed-off version of themselves that serves no one. The Stoics did not teach permanent silence. They did not teach that words are always the weaker move. They taught discernment. Marcus Aurelius was one of the most prolific writers in Roman history. Seneca wrote letters for decades. Epictetus taught hundreds of students through the power of words. These were not silent men. But they chose when they spoke. Why? To whom? From what place within themselves? Here is the Stoic test for whether to speak. Ask yourself 4 questions. Is it true? Is it necessary? Does it serve the situation, not my ego, not my need for relief, not my desire to win, but the actual situation? And, am I speaking from my values, or from my wound? If the answer to any of those questions is no, go silent. Not forever. Not bitterly. Not as punishment. Simply go still. Wait. Let the moment pass. And if after the moment has passed, after the emotion has cleared, speaking still serves something real, then speak. From that clear, calm, centered place. And what comes from that place carries a weight that reaction never can. A word spoken from stillness lands differently than a word spoken from fire. People feel the difference even when they cannot name it. Calm words from a steady person carry more authority than the most passionate defense from someone whose hands are shaking. The woman at the well. In a small village, there was a woman known for her wisdom. People came to her from across the region with their arguments, their grievances, their impossible situations. And she would listen, completely, without interruption, and then speak a few quiet words that somehow always reached the center of the problem. One day a young man came to her in a fury. His business partner had cheated him, stolen from him, lied to their clients about him. He laid out the whole story, shaking with anger, and then said, "Tell me what to say to him. Tell me how to destroy him the way he has destroyed me." The woman was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Come with me." She led him to the village well. She drew a bucket of water and set it on the stone ledge beside the well. She said, "Hit the water." The young man looked at her strangely. But he hit the water. The water erupted, splashed everywhere. Some of it back on him. The woman said, "Now yell at it. Curse it." He did. The water rippled, settled, was unchanged. She said, "Now tell the water why it was wrong to get you wet." He opened his mouth, closed it. He looked at the water, still and quiet in the bucket. She said, "A man who has cheated you and lied about you is already carrying those things. They live inside him, not inside you. The moment you react, the moment you explain yourself to him, the moment you engage, you reach into the bucket and pull his water into your own life. You splash yourself. Let the water be still. Let him carry what is his. Your work is not revenge. Your work is to build something so real, so clear, so undeniably yours, that his lies have nowhere to stand." She went inside. The young man sat by the well for a long time. When he left, he did not go to find his former partner. He went home. And he began to build the inner citadel. Marcus Aurelius had a concept he returned to again and again in his private writings. He called it the inner citadel. Not a physical place. Not a retreat in the mountains. A structure within the self. A fortress of the mind and soul that no external force, no insult, no injustice, no loss, no betrayal, could breach without your permission. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The inner citadel is built through practice. Through the daily, unglamorous, often uncomfortable work of catching your reactions before they escape. Of watching your mind move toward explanation and choosing stillness instead. Of feeling the pull to defend yourself and letting it pass. Each time you choose stillness in a moment that called for reaction, you add a stone to the citadel. Each time you let an insult pass without giving it a home inside you, another stone. Each time you decline to explain yourself to someone who will not hear you, another stone. The citadel is not built in moments of peace. It is built in exactly the moments we are discussing today. The moments of provocation. Of injustice. Of the burning human desire to react, to explain, to respond. And over time, and this is what the Stoics knew and what experience confirms, the citadel becomes real. You begin to notice a gap between what happens to you and what you do about it. A space. Small at first. Then wider. And in that space, your freedom lives. Seneca wrote in one of his letters, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. He who knows who he is, truly knows, can bear the misunderstanding of those who do not. He who is clear on his values does not need to explain them to those who are determined not to see them. He who has built his inner citadel does not need the approval of those launching stones at his walls. Because the walls hold. Not because the stones did not come. But because the citadel was built for exactly this." What happens when you stop? I want to tell you what people who have genuinely practiced this describe. Not the philosophy. The lived experience. They describe a kind of lightness. As though something they had been carrying for years, without ever noticing the weight, was finally set down. Because reacting, explaining, responding from a wound is work. Exhausting, invisible, relentless work. Every conflict that is not resolved, but merely fired at, stays alive in you. Every explanation that was not heard lives in you as unfinished business. Every reaction that ran ahead of your wisdom becomes a regret that cost something. When you stop, when you genuinely, through practice and philosophy, begin to choose stillness over reaction, the energy that was spent fighting old wars returns to you. And you begin to notice something in the people around you. They begin to treat you differently. Not because you have become colder. Not because you have become less engaged. But because you have become unknowable in a particular way. You cannot be predicted. Cannot be provoked. Cannot be easily manipulated. And people, most people, respect what they cannot easily move. The Stoics called this apatheia, not apathy in the modern sense, but a freedom from being ruled by emotions. Not the absence of feeling. Mastery of it. You still feel anger. You still feel hurt. You still feel the sting of injustice. But the feeling moves through you like weather. You notice it. You name it. You let it pass. And when it has passed, you choose. Not from fire. Not from wound. Not from fear. From who you actually are, at your deepest and most settled. The mountain and the wind. There is a mountain. It has stood for 40 million years. In those 40 million years, storms have struck it, storms that leveled forests, collapsed valleys, redirected rivers. Lightning has found it 10,000 times. Winds have hit it continuously, without pause, without mercy, from every direction. Ice has crept into its cracks and tried to split it from within. The mountain did not explain the storm away. It did not argue with the lightning. It did not react to the wind. It simply stood. And every storm passed. Every lightning strike faded. Every wind eventually moved on. And the mountain, older and more settled for every storm it has witnessed, remains. You are the mountain. Not because you feel nothing. The mountain feels the wind. The mountain bears the lightning. But because you have within you the capacity to stand. To remain. To outlast every storm that was designed to move you. Epictetus said, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." The mountain does not grieve for the calm days taken by storms. It stands in the storm. It stands after. And it stands before the next one, unmoved, unbroken, entirely itself. That is who you are, when you stop reacting. When you stop explaining. When you stop responding from the wound. You become someone the storms of other people's chaos cannot unmake. You become, finally, fully, at great cost and great reward, yourself. We have walked a long road today. From a general who refused to hand a drunk man a sword, to an emperor who was betrayed by his own commander and chose mercy over fury. From a boy and a fence full of holes, to a mountain that has outlasted 40 million years of weather. From the physiology of reaction, to the Stoic architecture of the inner citadel. What I hope you carry from today is not a technique. Techniques fade. Rules break. Strategies get overwhelmed by circumstance. What I hope you carry is a way of seeing. A way of seeing provocation not as something that must be answered, but as something that can be observed. A way of seeing explanation not as a duty, but as a choice, made with discernment. A way of seeing your own emotional responses not as commanders to be obeyed, but as signals to be read, understood, and ultimately governed by the deepest part of who you are. Marcus Aurelius sat alone before dawn every morning. Not because he had nothing to do. He was running the most powerful empire in the world. He sat alone because he understood that the man who leads himself, truly, consistently, in the small unglamorous moments as much as the great ones, is the only man capable of leading anything else. Lead yourself first. In the moment you want to react, pause. In the moment you want to explain, ask, to whom, and why, and will it serve? In the moment you want to respond from fire, find the stillness underneath and speak from there instead. This is the work. It is not finished quickly. It is not finished at all, in a sense, it is a practice, renewed each day, each provocation, each moment. But with each practice, the citadel grows stronger. The space between stimulus and response grows wider. And the freedom that lives in that space grows larger until it becomes the primary climate of your life. If today moved something in you, subscribe to this channel. Every week we go here. Every week we take on something the modern world has forgotten and the ancient world knew deeply. Subscribe. And bring someone who needs to hear this. Because what is built here, what we are building together in this community, is the antidote to a world that rewards reaction and mistakes noise for strength. You are not noise. You are the mountain. Stand. Every single week on Stoic Mindset, we go this deep. Ancient wisdom. Real life. The kind of clarity that most channels are too afraid to sit in long enough to find. Subscribe. And leave a comment below. Tell me, what is the situation in your life right now where you most need to practice stillness? I read every comment. I will see you in the next one. Stay grounded. Stay still.